welcome to Tiger Basketball Report. I'm your host, Devin LaTulippe.
I'm Landon Speck. We're back again with another Skelly crew. No Sam today, no Noah. Two-man team. We're going to make it happen today. Pumped up to talk about Tiger basketball.
Absolutely. So we're going to bring you today a recap of Maui, what we learned from the Tigers from Maui, and then a slight preview on Louisiana Tech for tomorrow's game. Landon, go ahead and open up your thoughts on the UConn game.
All right, so if you didn't hear, I don't know. Memphis beat UConn. Now, when that game happened, UConn was number two in the country. We were talking about this as a potential program-changing win for Memphis, only for UConn to go and lose the rest of their games in Maui. UConn went 0-3 at Maui. They're ranked 25th in the AP poll somehow. Most people would say they shouldn't even be there. So in classic Memphis fashion, much similar to the Florida State win in football, and then if you remember the battle for Atlantis last year, the Arkansas win in basketball.
And the Michigan win.
Memphis' quote-unquote good wins don't turn out to be as good as we think they are. Now, I believe UConn is still a good team. I think they'll do well in the Big East. I think this win will end up looking good for Memphis. It's just insane how quickly this went from being this program-defining win to a win over a fringe top 25 team. Now, this game. Memphis had their best first half of the season. That's something Sam and I hit on in the last episode, saying how in a game like this, where we thought UConn was the top 3 team in the country going into the game, we were talking about how this is a game where you got to come out, you cannot start out slow. You're going to have to hit some more shots than you would normally hit. And that's exactly what Memphis did with Tyrese Hunter. Tyrese Hunter was absolutely unbelievable in this game. Everything he shot from beyond the three-point arc felt like it was going in. And he was just a catalyst here. He played 40 minutes. You know, obviously this game went into overtime if you didn't watch it. So he played 40 out of 45 minutes in the game. And he scored 26 points. He shot 7 of 10 from the three-point line, 8 of 13 from the field. Just absolute Tyrese Hunter masterclass in this game. And now back to that first half, Memphis was having some real problems with a couple players off the bench for Utah, that being Terrence Reed Jr. and Jalen Stewart. Both of those players gave Memphis some problems. But Memphis, on the offensive end, they had a counter. It seemed like the entire game they were just trying to find where Aiden Mahaney was, and they were just going to go at him. They knew Aiden Mahaney wasn't going to be able to guard anybody. So, you know, Memphis in the first half, it was the best they've played. They didn't dig themselves into a hole. They went neck and neck with UConn in that first half. And Devin, what did you see in that first half in the UConn game?
I love what I saw in the first half. Tyrese Hunter got out going strong, which I think he needed to do because we've struggled in the first half just as a whole. But when both PJ Haggerty and Tyrese Hunter are being that aggressive, it really opens the floor for a guy like Dane Danger had 8 points in the first half. Colby Rogers also really showed up majorly against UConn. Finished with 9 first half points. Memphis shot 50% from 3. Didn't turn the ball. Had 6 turnovers, a little too many for half, especially a team against UConn. I would like to see that be a little cleaner, but you can't complain about 40-40 going into halftime against UConn, who, like we said, was the top team in the country at this time.
Yeah, they ended up getting up by 6. About if you will, the first quarter of the game.
Sure.
About 10:30 left in the first half, Memphis went up 6 and kind of held on to that, and then UConn, as you'd expect, made their run and it kind of went into a back and forth game. And yeah, you're right, they go into halftime tied at 40-40, which honestly, for both UConn's elite offensively, but they've also been a good defensive team historically. And then Memphis, obviously, as we know, is an awesome defensive team. That's what they excel at. So for 40-40 at half, I thought was a little bit of a high scoring for maybe what we thought this game was going to be. I thought also in the first half, I thought Danger played really well again. Dane Danger coming off the bench, and there was also something Memphis did in this game was, excuse me, they scored a lot of points in transition on the fast break, but they didn't necessarily turn UConn over a whole lot. They were getting the rebound and getting out and running, which I thought helped them a tremendous amount. Obviously, when you can score in transition, you can play to your strength offensively without forcing turnovers, which is the main thing that gets you running out in transition. I thought that was big that Memphis was able to do that. Another thing with this game, and this was honestly a common theme with all the games in Maui, the whistles were just outrageous.
Yes.
Now, obviously, this is college basketball. A lot of players don't really know how to defend without fouling, it may seem, but it just seemed like every other 30 seconds we were getting a whistle blown. And
yeah. For background on that, Memphis shot 40 free throws against UConn, whereas UConn's 24. Memphis shot 73% from the line, UConn 79%.
40 free throws in a basketball game is absurd.
It was ridiculous. It was a lot.
Yeah. Now, obviously, when all those fouls are being called, your players get into foul trouble. In this game, Nick Jordan fouled out with right at the under 8-minute mark. I believe.
PJ Haggerty.
Haggerty, yeah, Haggerty. That's right.
Haggerty was missing in overtime.
Yeah, Haggerty fouled out and missed overtime. And then in overtime though, Memphis got PJ Carter and Colby Rogers. They basically got those two to take the game over and absolutely came up as clutch as you can possibly be.
PJ Carter made 6 straight free throws in the last minute of the game, or last 40 seconds of the game, excuse me. Unbelievable clutch out of that guy. He's been, not a huge part of the Memphis team so far, but that honestly, he really made his mark on the team. I'm sure that earned him a ton of, even more respect than he already had in the locker room, and favor with Penny. That was unbelievable.
It was really incredible because PJ had gone the entire game. He didn't score a single point, and in overtime, UConn, I believe, I forget exactly who it was. They made a 3 to go up. Maybe it was they went up 4. They hit a 3 to go up 4, and Memphis coming down on the other end. Carter, I think it was either like the first or second pass of the possession. Carter gets it on the right wing and just lets it fly and drains it early in the shot clock. Just pure confidence. And after that, pretty much everything started going Memphis' way. I mean, that was a game-changing shot. And then Colby Rogers early in the period hit some big shots. He had a runner in the paint, and then he had a pull-up mid-range jump shot. Just these big shots.
Colby Rogers also hit the shot to tie 92-92 with 107 remaining as well.
Yeah, just absolute clutch shot making from Colby Rogers. And then in overtime, it was obviously more needed when your star Haggerty went out. This another big storyline. I mean, Devin kind of already hit on it with Carter's. Memphis made their clutch free throws in this game. And coincidentally, actually, Colby Rogers missed a free throw at the end to kind of keep UConn in it after they had hit all their free throws. So, obviously nothing easy there, but it's obviously been a big story with Memphis basketball in the past, how, they haven't hit their free throws. And in this game, they were able to. But all in all in this game, I mean, Tyrese Hunter, just man, that guy. I mean, the whole tournament, this dude just had an absolute coming out party. He was incredible. In this UConn game, Memphis' trio of guards that got out of the transfer portal combined for, I believe, 67 points. Hunter had 26, Haggerty had 22, and Rogers had 19. So, I mean, you got exactly what you were hoping for out of that trio when you got them out of the transfer portal, and it ended up being a great win for the Tigers. We'll obviously see how it ends up going, forward the rest of the season. But we're gonna be very interested to see how UConn looks going forward. I think, like I said, they'll be better than what they were in Maui, but obviously there's a lot of questions in the air. I mean, this is a team that only brought back Alex Caravan from last year's national championship starting lineup, so they have a lot to replace, and I think Hurley winning the national title the last 2 seasons has gotten a lot of respect for the program, if you would say, where it doesn't matter who's on the team. When you have that coach, you expect them to be pretty good. So hopefully that UConn ends up being the team or something close to the team that we maybe expected them to be, so this can be a better win for the Tigers going forward.
Just to spotlight Tyrese Hunter just for a second, I have this pulled up right here. Starting at the 9:18 mark, we saw a tied game. Or it was tied, it was tied at 10-13. Tyrese Hunter scored 9 straight, a 9-0 run, all created by him, including an and 1 3, and a ridiculously long heat check 3 from the logo that he just sunk. And that was not an uncommon thing for him this tournament. His range was unbelievable. It was like, well beyond NBA 3. Tyrese Hunter really showed up in this tournament, like Landon just mentioned, and a big part of us going up 13 until the eventual. We'll speak on that in a second. The kind of the crumble we saw from the Tigers in the second half.
Yeah, I think that's something that we definitely shouldn't leave out. I mean, Memphis was up by double digits late in the game.
13 we were up 13 with 4 minutes remaining.
13 at the under 4, and UConn just gets back in it. They credit to Liam McNeely here, the freshman from Montverde Academy, 5-star freshman. He was having probably his worst game of the season thus far, and he comes out and he hits 2 enormous threes at the end for UConn at the end of regulation to really get them back in it. And then obviously the shot everybody's going to remember is that solo ball 3-pointer at the end of regulation to tie the game. It was not an easy shot at all. Honestly, it was defended pretty well by Memphis, but he just knocked it. UConn just knocked down shots at the end. I mean, and that's what a championship experience, a team with championship experience, that's what they do. But luckily, Memphis in overtime was able to overcome it, and they ended up pulling out the win. Just absolutely massive game for Memphis. I think it really showed the team that they belong there, and that they could play with anybody. Now, something I did want to hit on about Maui, the tournament in general, because you brought up Tyrese Hunter shooting from everywhere. These are probably the most forgiving rims I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The rims are incredibly soft, so
They were.
you know, everybody at Maui at some points may have looked like 2015 Steph Curry.
Yeah, sure.
So they were. The teams were shooting the lights out here at Maui, and it was really fun to watch. Despite all the fouls, some of the shot making did make up for the foul calls in these games. Now, after this UConn game, next day, Memphis takes on Michigan State, who they were first in others receiving votes, so they were essentially ranked number 26. So this is wins now for Memphis over 25 and 26 in the AP. And, this is another big one for Memphis. Two main things I thought from this game. Seems like Memphis had a lot of dumb fouls. Musa Cisse and Dane Danger both fouled out.
Yep.
They lose both of their bigs in this game. And I remember one specifically from Danger. He has a foul where the ball's out, 10 feet out from the three-point line. He's out there reaching.
Yeah.
So I think that's something Memphis needs to be careful with going forward. It's just, obviously, you're going to foul, but I think you can be selective about how aggressive you are in certain points of the game. And I thought there was multiple just stupid fouls that hurt Memphis down the stretch. Obviously, they ended up getting the win, but losing both of your bigs at the end of a game like that is just it's not something that you can afford to do normally. And then this game for PJ Haggerty has 16 points. He's more efficient than he was in the UConn game. He was 6 of 11. It's another big Hunter game, but something I noticed a lot with PJ Haggerty, he had 4 turnovers in this game, and every time something goes wrong, whether he turns the ball over or he misses it or he doesn't get a call, he's never one to really complain out there. He's always calm. He's always collected. He's this even keel guy, and I think that's a huge part of him as a player, just on the court. He's never too high, never too low, and I think that's part of what makes him so successful. Tyrese Hunter in this game, 23 points, 5 of 10 from 3, 7 of 15 from the field. Continues what he had going in the UConn game. Absolutely on fire from 3, and he was Memphis' leading scorer. And had Memphis ended up winning this Maui tournament, he'd be the MVP of it.
Absolutely.
He was definitely the team MVP. What'd you see in the Michigan State game? What'd you think about that?
I was just my favorite part of the Michigan State game was listen to this. Memphis 9 turnovers to Michigan State's 13. Memphis 22 points off turnovers to Michigan State's 10. I am a big grumpy old man when it comes to turnovers in college basketball. It's unbelievable. I see, last year Memphis was really bad about it. It was like 15 turnovers, and that was like, it was like if we had 13, that was considered like a good game.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
No,
we cannot be turning the ball over that much. I love capitalizing. It's free possessions.
Yeah. It's
22 points we wouldn't have had. That's like the biggest thing that sticks out to me. We have great shooting games. That's unbelievable. That turnover number being low, and 10 assists doesn't stick out at the end of the stat sheet. But if you watch the game, it's clear to see the ball movement is improving almost each.
This might be the best ball movement I've ever seen from any team.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's improving every half seemingly. It's like just half to half. It's like these guys are like looking for the one more. The plays are running smoothly. The offense is flowing through either Haggerty or Hunter, whoever has the ball at the moment. It's really beautiful to watch compared to teams in the past where we've seen a lot of ISO ball and a lot of just even if it does go down the post, it's kind of just like make a move and put a shot up, and that's the end of possession. I've really been impressed with how this team that was kind of really thrown together. I guess there was a little more time for this year's than last year's, but I've just been really impressed. And that really comes down to the guards. Haggerty, as much as we give him credit for his scoring, which we should, because he's an unbelievable scorer, unbelievable, gets to the line and everything like that. The way he conducts the offense is really underrated. He had 4 assists in this game. That's not going to jump off the page to you, but just the way he conducts the offense is really something to keep an eye on if you want to look at it.
He had 9 rebounds in this game too.
He did have 9 rebounds.
He had 9 rebounds. And that's something I kind of noticed while watching. He rebounds very well for a guard.
He does.
And Memphis has 2 legit bigs, but obviously you're going to take all the rebounding help you can get, and he provided that. Speaking of the bigs, I thought Musa Cisse had a really good first half.
I was just about to say, I think the bigs in this Michigan, especially the UConn game, they played phenomenal as well. The Michigan State game, I really thought they showed themselves as. We have great bigs. These guys came to play. Michigan State. Michigan State did out rebound 36-28 to Memphis, but I think that Memphis' situational rebounding was good enough.
Yeah. definitely to get the job done.
Yeah.
Musa actually early in the first half he got hurt, ended up coming back, and he's played really well. He had his most efficient game from the field. He's 4 for 6 for 9 points. That's a lot for Musa Cisse. He rebounded the ball. He played good defense. He did end up fouling out in this game with 2 minutes and 50 seconds remaining, but thought he had a very strong first half. It's the best half of the season. The most interesting part about this first half was, if you weren't aware, Michigan State going into this game was the worst 3-point shooting team in Division I, and they came out and just shot the absolute cover off the ball in the first half. And the good news for Memphis with that is it didn't really get out of hand. I mean, I don't remember exactly what the score was at halftime, and I'm sure Devin can get on that for me. But Michigan State, they had their best shooting half of the year in that first half.
Going in half, Memphis was up 34-31.
34-31 Memphis, despite the Spartans having their best 3-point shooting half of the year. I think that's pretty indicative of how this game went. It took Michigan State making all those shots for them to keep it as close as it was. Memphis ends up winning by 8. In the second half in this game, Tyrese Hunter continued being hot from the first half, from the UConn game. Just a go-to scorer here. I thought in the interior defensively from both bigs, I thought this was another incredible game. I can't remember if I've mentioned this in past episodes, but I think Musa and Dane Danger complement each other so well. And I think from the first looks of it, you may see the both of them and think, neither of them can shoot threes, or they're pretty similar players, and they're really not. They're both super long. Danger's about 6'8", 6'9", something around there. Moose is bigger. He's about 7'1", 7'2". But Danger's long. He just has a really long wingspan, and they both play super stiff defense in the interior. But Dane just gives you something extra offensively that Musa doesn't. He's very skilled. He can create and
watch his footwork, folks. Yeah. Next game, key in on how this guy moves in the post. Yeah. It's really something to like.
And on all 3 levels of it too, down on the block, in the mid post, and the high post, his footwork is just, it's like an old school big. It's really fun to watch, and it's very unique to see a big like him be skilled and have this modern feel to him without really being a shooter. It's something that's really fun to watch, and I think it's a really good thing for this team. Colby Rogers got going in the second half for Memphis. He ended up finishing the game with 10 points. That trio of guards continuing their scoring from the UConn game. And another thing with the fouls in this game, both bigs, Danger and Musa, both had 4 fouls at the 10-20 mark.
Yeah.
And obviously, like we said, they both ended up fouling out. So not only did they end up fouling out, they were in foul trouble pretty much the whole game.
Yeah. Musa Cisse fouled out with 2:52 to play and was replaced by Nick Jourdain at the 5.
Yeah, and then Danger fouled out at 6:33.
Yeah.
So Musa had to hold it down for about 4 minutes until he finally got his 5th. Memphis went up 12 at 11:02 at the 11:02 mark. They never really looked back. They ended up winning the game by 8. And there were some points in this game where Michigan State felt like they were trying to go on a run.
Yeah.
I thought Jace Richardson for the Spartans was very good.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah, he would come back down. He made some big shots to try and cut the lead, and he would. But when at the point where it seemed like the Spartans were going to try and get back in it, Memphis just kept slamming the door shut on them. Yeah. They would go back down and respond with the bucket. They would take the fans right back out of it, and that's pretty much how this game went. They withstood the hot shooting that the Michigan State had in the first half and ended up winning this game by 8. And this is another one that could end up being a good win for Memphis going down the road.
Absolutely.
Obviously, Michigan State, coached by Tom Izzo, may not be what you're used to seeing out of a Michigan State team, but it's a team that's in the tournament pretty much every year.
Yeah, so they will be in the tournament this year.
They're ranked 36 in KenPom. For reference, Memphis is 31, so they're in the same quadrant as Memphis. From a KenPom standpoint, obviously the net is a different ranking when you think of quads, but they're right there with Memphis on that front. You got any other thoughts from this game?
I do. Okay. I'd like to. First of all, we didn't say this earlier, and it's not really a big note in this game. Please foul when you're up 3. I know our good friend Sam here, regular on the show, has changed his Twitter bio in support of this to foul up 3. Please foul up 3 in the future. There's so much less that could go wrong than not fouling.
Yeah, I don't think we did it. We failed to mention that when we were talking.
That was a note in the UConn game.
Yeah, that was a big deal in the UConn game. Yeah. Memphis didn't foul up 3. UConn had the ball down by 3 points, and Memphis had the chance to foul them with about 4 seconds left. I believe they had a player. I think it was Diarra, but maybe. inside the 3-point arc, trying to get the ball back out, and they could have fouled him,
Yeah.
and they didn't, and then Solo Ball ends up hitting the shot that tied the game. Obviously, it's not as big of a talking point when you win,
Right.
but that's for sure is something going forward. I'm a big proponent of that as well.
Yeah,
You
so-
must foul up 3.
So that was one of my notes. And then really just wanted to huge Nick Jourdain, nothing he did jumped off the stat sheet. Whatever. He held down that's very, very possible from the round the mark where Cisse sits down for Michigan State to take advantage of that and go on a big run and make the end of this game a little close for comfort. Nick Jourdain held it down. What I love about Jourdain is nothing he does. I mean, sometimes he'll have a good game, right? He'll score 10 points, grab a couple rebounds, whatever. Nothing he does jumps off the stat sheet, but he's just like the most important glue guy we have on the team. And I don't want him to go uncredited. It's really, really great stuff from him. And then PJ Carter again hitting the 2 free throws to seal the game. This one's not as high pressure as the UConn game, obviously, but I think it's also a good note. 2 great wins over 2, unbelievable coaches, Tom Izzo, Dan Hurley. Hurley did shoot himself in the foot in that UConn game. I'm sure he's regretting his little.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Dan Hurley got a technical foul late in overtime.
Yep.
I believe the game was tied.
Yep,
and,
it was.
And they called an over-the-back call on Liam McNeely, and he was just absolutely irate and befuddled about it.
He was.
And so Memphis not only got the 2 free throws from that foul call, they got the free throw in the ball from the technical foul, and so they ended up going up multiple possessions.
And I believe we hit a shot after that.
Yeah. I mean, that pretty much ended the game.
When
Hurley got that tech, I believe it was a 40-something seconds left, that. So yeah, just two really nice wins against 2 teams that more than likely will be playing in the tournament.
Yeah.
Michigan State the mainstay, and then obviously UConn's off to a rough start, but they have too good of a coach and they're too talented to miss the tournament. I think they'll be.
The
fine.
sky's falling if UConn doesn't make the tournament this year. They'll be a tournament team
for sure. So you win those 2, you get off to a great start. You got a lot of national buzz after that UConn game, and the momentum carries over into Michigan State, and then now you're in the championship game in Maui, and you run into Auburn. Now, for folks who don't watch college basketball outside of Memphis, let me tell you, Auburn is a machine. Auburn is the best team in college basketball. They're number 1 in KenPom. I believe they're number 2 in the net. They're number 2 in the AP. But a lot of people on social media that cover the sport, that watch all these games, and whose opinions I value, agree with me in this sentiment that Auburn's the number 1 team. Now, Auburn, they beat Iowa State, which that was another great game in this tournament. They beat Iowa State on a Janai Broom game winner, 83-81 on Monday, the same day Memphis beat UConn. And then Auburn followed that up with a win over North Carolina. And then they get to Memphis. And before Maui, Auburn had beaten Houston. And Auburn just one of the best resumes so far this season, and they've just looked like an absolute machine. Memphis takes their first loss of the season to the Auburn Tigers by a final score of 90-76 in this game. PJ Haggerty at 27, just a classic Haggerty game.
Yep.
He's gonna show he's the best player on the team. He's gonna be the alpha. Unfortunately, Tyrese Hunter a little more contained here. He had 11 points. He shot 2-4 from 3, so good percentage. Memphis on this game, they shot 66% from 3. 67. Round up, obviously. Now, what's insane about that? Memphis shot 67% from 3, but the problem here is they only shot 9 threes.
Yep.
Which Sam's hit on a lot, and he's been right about. They understand that they're a team that's not going to shoot the lights out, but they got hot at Maui, and it's like this game. They just went back to thinking there's this team that wasn't going to make all these threes. I mean, I thought it was just a little bizarre that they and credit to Auburn's defense.
Yeah, I was about to say Auburn was definitely.
I mean, Auburn is suffocating on defense.
Yeah.
In the interior, their guards guard out. They put an incredible ball pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, you're not going to be out there. You're not just going to be able to jack threes. But it's pretty incredible to think you shot 67% and you didn't even get 10 threes off.
Right.
But like we said, credit to Auburn's defense on that one. And then another one overall, Memphis shot 50% from the field. Like, this wasn't this. I didn't look at this game as just some dud for Memphis. I think Auburn's just that good.
Yeah, I even wrote, I wrote after the game was over. This is more indicative of Auburn than it is of Memphis.
For sure.
1,000%. This is Auburn's just really, really this good. This is about as good of a loss you're gonna have.
Yep.
And in the second half, Auburn was up 16 at halftime. Memphis outscored Auburn in the second half, 45-43.
Yeah.
So take your small wins where you can get them.
Take your small wins. There you go.
Because this team's unbelievable. Now, I will say, I talked earlier about the Michigan State turnovers to assist ratio. This game, Memphis finished with 11 turnovers, not bad, but just 7 assists. And listen to Auburn's. Auburn finished with 9 turnovers to 23 assists.
They moved the ball.
They moved the ball well.
The ball really well.
Something I like to see. And it was a bit of a fall. Like we said, Auburn's defense is next level. These guys are playing stifling defense. It's hard to get the ball moving well, especially when Tyrese Hunter is not. He had 11 points, like we said, 40% from the field. Not his best game, and especially in this tournament. So it's harder to get the ball moving. But
yeah, I mean it wasn't a terrible game. It's just it wasn't what you were used to.
Right.
Against UConn and Michigan State.
Yeah.
And then Colby Rogers ended up with 15. Dane Danger ended up with 15. Like it wasn't like anybody out there just had an absolute stinker. It's just they scored 76 points.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean,
and it's not
just
even
a rough one.
And I really can't point to Memphis' defense and say like, look at all these lapses or look at like this miscommunication. It's like, no man, Auburn's just. They were just on fire.
Yeah, I think out of all the good, we've talked so much about how well Dane Danger and Musa Cisse have played.
Mm-hmm.
This was the first game where I think they just absolutely got punked.
Oh, for sure.
Now, let's be clear here. Janai Broom's probably the best player in college basketball. The center power forward center. He's a big for Auburn. And then
he finished with 16 rebounds.
16 rebounds, coming off a game against North Carolina where he had 19. So just absolutely dominant force down low. Mm-hmm. He's also an elite shot blocker. How many blocks did he finish with? He had 4 blocks. Yeah. So he had 21 points, 16 rebounds, 4 blocks. And he had 6 assists too. He led Auburn in assists. Yeah. He led Auburn in points, assists, and rebounds. Just looking like Nikola Jokic out there. Yeah. Just absolutely unstoppable. I mean, and then we said bigs. It's because Dylan Carbell for Auburn played 26 minutes, and in those 26 minutes, he only had 18 points on 8 of 8 shooting, 1 of 1 from 3. And he had 6 assists of his own. It was actually pretty remarkable. Auburn's bigs their 2 centers combined for 12 assists in this game.
Yeah.
That just shows you how well they were clicking. And Memphis had no answer for those guys.
Right.
I mean, it was really nothing they could do. They were playing the high-low from the high post and the block so well together. But like we talked about in this game, I mean, PJ Haggerty was great. And I will say for Memphis too, we talked about this going in, how their rotation's pretty short. I mean, Memphis is only playing, they're only playing 8 guys.
Yeah.
Normally, and let's see, yeah. I mean, PJ Carter played 8 minutes. Rocco Koji played 12. Jared Harris played 5. Demarion Yates got in for 4 minutes. But other than that, you had your regular 5, or your regular 5 with Jourdain, Rogers, Haggerty, Hunter, and Danger.
Yep.
All playing their normal minutes, and then Musa played 16. But like that, and then Okoji plays 12, and then PJ Carter played 8. I mean, that's your rotation right there.
Right.
That's 8, and that's two of those 8. One only plays 8 minutes, one only plays 12. So this is a team that they're gonna have their best players out there. They're gonna play a lot of minutes, and when you're in a tournament setting like this, where you're playing 3 games in 3 days, that's gonna catch up with you, and it finally did in this one. I thought Memphis' game just looked like a team that was playing their third game in 3 days. Now, obviously, yes, Auburn was doing the same, but the big difference with Memphis and Auburn is Auburn runs, when they have all their players right, they're running 10, 11 deep. I believe recently they've been running, they've really only been playing 9 because they had Ja'Kai Howard and Jaheim Hudson get into that altercation on the plane that I'm sure many fans are familiar with early in the year. So they only play 9, but even if they have to go beyond that, they're capable of it. So I think that was a big advantage for Auburn here, was just the depth. And then also Auburn just came out and they just punched them in the mouth early. I mean, that's what we talked about with the first half. I mean, Memphis came out slow. How much of it was their fault? That's for people to decide. But I mean, like we've talked about this whole time, I mean, Auburn's just a really, really good team.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, you have any thoughts on this?
No, I mean, I think that obviously Memphis wasn't going to go undefeated this season. A loss had to come. This is about as good as we're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best team Memphis is going to play all year.
Yeah,
Memphis isn't going to see a defense better than this, and
Without
they're not going to see a buzzsaw better than this. And I mean, Auburn, they've just been so hot, so on fire lately. I think pretty much what sums up how this game was going for Auburn. Carbell made that 3, Dylan Carbell, at the beginning of the second half. Obviously, not everybody's a Dylan Carbell expert, but I can tell you Dylan Carbell is not a 3-point shooter. I mean, this is like if Shaq would just shot a 3 and it went in. I mean, that's just the type of day it was for Auburn. It was it was all them from the start. And I mean, fortunately for Memphis, like we said, take the small wins out. You outscored them in the second half, but Auburn was just that good, and they got out to that big of a lead in the first half that it ended up not really mattering much. So yeah, Memphis, they go 2-1 in Maui. What'd you expect going into this, Devin? Because you weren't on the last episode. What were you expecting for the Tigers going into Maui?
I expected here's what I was expecting. Not this. I expected a slow start first half against UConn, and then we'd make a game out of it in the second, but ultimately fall. I'll be honest, even when Memphis fell, when they kind of blew that lead in the second half, I was like, oh no, like is this the same old Tigers? Like, are we gonna blow this? And it's gonna be a rough look. But then obviously that didn't happen. But my expectation was to lose that game, and then I was thinking 1-2 in this tournament. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's fair because I think most people were. I mean, you weren't chalking up the UConn game as an L right away. Like, you were obviously going to watch and see what happens,
right.
But you weren't counting on winning that one. Yeah. And then obviously after that one, you didn't know who you were going to play. But we knew going in that this tournament was just filled with good teams, and
Absolutely.
So I think 1-2 was probably something fair to not necessarily. I mean, yeah, you can say expect, but something that you were having to prepare yourself to be okay with as a fan.
I think it was a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, definitely reasonable. Now, we talked about too going into the tournament on the last episode how you just wanted to go and you really just wanted to play well. You wanted to show you belonged, and Memphis did that. I mean, they've gotten their KenPom up to 31. They're 33 in Torvik, and then obviously the big one that people are going to pay attention to. They get ranked number 16 in the AP poll, going from unranked to 16 because of that run in Maui. So this tournament went about as well. It went as well as it possibly could for Memphis. I mean, I don't think you could have drawn up realistically it going back. Obviously winning the whole thing, but
sure.
I don't think that was ever something that you could realistically expect when you looked at the other teams. Because say Auburn didn't make it to that championship game, it more than likely would have been Iowa State. Because that's the game Auburn was close to losing. And Iowa State, if you hadn't watched them, man, they guard. they play so hard. TJ Otzelberger's got them rolling defensively, similar to the team last year. So yeah, I mean, this is Memphis they had some tests in this tournament. They passed a couple of them. They're definitely going to learn from the Auburn game. That's a loss that'll grow. It'll help the team grow.
Absolutely.
It'll make them better going forward. And so yeah, speaking of going forward, we're going to move on from Maui. We're into December now, second month of the season. Memphis has on their schedule going forward. They got Louisiana Tech on Wednesday, which is tomorrow. We're recording this on Tuesday, December 3rd. So they play Louisiana Tech tomorrow at home. And then they got Arkansas State at home on Sunday, December 8th. And then after that, you dip back into this tough stretches of non-conference we've been talking about. You got 4 games in a row where you're at Clemson, you're at Virginia, and then you host Mississippi State, and then you host Ole Miss. Yep. Now, Ole Miss is the only ranked team out of those, but Clemson's tough. They returned Ian Shefflin from last year's team, which actually Devin and I were both in attendance at the NCAA. We were in attendance at the NCAA tournament in Memphis last year, and we saw Clemson play. Who'd they play?
New Mexico
State? New Mexico. They played the Lobos. They played New Mexico. And Ian Shefflin was awesome.
He was
back. PJ Hall's gone, but they got Ian Shefflin. I believe they had another guard from that team that they returned. That was Chase Hunter. They returned Chase Hunter. So Clemson's going to be tough, especially on the road. It's not easy to win on the road in college basketball. Yep. Virginia, that one looks way different than it did going into the year because Tony Bennett retired.
And even last year, Memphis really... I couldn't tell you the score on the top of my head, but it was a hand.
Oh yeah, this isn't the Virginia of old.
No, yeah,
but
absolutely.
Road game.
Right.
We're not going to take this lightly. And then Mississippi State's a fun team. Like they're more than likely going to end up in the tournament. They're not ranked in the top 25 or anything, but Chris Jans has done an unbelievable job there, and they have one of the most fun players in the entire country to watch. They have Josh Hubbard, this sophomore guard. He's 5'10". He's a small guy, but he's averaging 19 a game. And last year he was arguably the best freshman in the SEC. Mm-hmm. And he can shoot from anywhere. He has crazy range. And that'll be a good test for Memphis again. Hosting State, and then Ole Miss right after that, returning some production from last year. And there's 2 teams in the SEC that are expected to be in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you really want to close out this stretch of non-conference very strong, because the first initial net rankings came out yesterday, and those are a good measuring stick for where teams are when it comes to relation to their seed in the NCAA tournament. That's where you hear the terms quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4, wins and losses. That's where that comes from, is these net rankings. Memphis is 31 in the net, And unfortunately for them, there's not a single American Athletic Conference team that essentially would serve as a good win for Memphis.
Same problem that Memphis ran into last year.
Yeah, and so this non-conference, I mean, I think there was a quote I saw where Penny said before the season basically saying that this non-conference, this is our season.
Yeah.
And he's spot on with that. I mean, this is, obviously it's gone very well so far, but Memphis just has to keep playing strong in these games, and then going forward throughout the conference schedule, you can't just lose focus. You can't mess around and lose 3 or 4 of those games.
Which would happen last year.
Yeah, that's what happened last year
really
with the team.
Derailed the season.
Yeah. I mean, you got to beat these teams because the American Athletic Conference just isn't good.
Yeah,
this isn't a good conference.
And Memphis has a target on their back. Memphis is these guys. This is their big game.
Yeah, Memphis is all these guys' big game.
So they're gonna show up.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, Memphis needs this non-conference, and it's very promising to see how well they've played. Wednesday, Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech from Conference USA, they're 7-1. Haven't played a meaningful game, and I'll say that as nicely as possible.
Sure,
they've played just teams that you wouldn't expect much out of, and they're 7-1. But Memphis is really the first game they're playing against a respectable opponent. So this shouldn't be one the Tigers have any issues with. I mean, we're not going to do any predictions or anything. If Memphis loses to Louisiana Tech on Wednesday, we'll come on here and do an emergency pod.
Yeah, we will.
We'll
do you have the
freak out about it?
Do you have the line pulled up, Landon?
I do not. Let's see.
All right, while Landon pulls that up, I'm going to spotlight Louisiana Tech's leading scorer, which is a man by the name of Daniel Bacho. Averages 20.1 points, 6 boards, shoots 73% from the field. He's a forward for the Bulldogs from Paris, France. Something to keep an eye out on. We'll see how Moussa Cisse and Dane Danger handle him. He's seemingly their best player.
Yep. Let's see. I'm still trying to find this line. I wonder if this is one you can even bet on.
Yeah, this might be a. Let's see.
It's on ESPN Plus.
ESPN Plus. Yeah, I'm not even getting the line.
Yeah, man, I'm not seeing one anywhere.
Yeah, I'm not either. But like we said, tip off 7 o'clock, December 4 at the Forum.
Yep.
If you're one to enjoy ESPN analytics, they have the Tigers as a 92.6% likely winner, as opposed to the 7.4% for the Bulldogs. That means anything to you? I don't personally subscribe to those analytics, but if that's what you're into, there it is for you. Lane, you have anything else?
No, I mean, I think we've hit it all. I mean, just a quick little recap. Memphis goes to Maui. They go 2-1. They continue the strong non-conference stretch they've had, and they have a big opportunity ahead of them with this stretch of games. You got La Tech and Arkansas State, but then you got another tough 4-game stretch after that, and we'll see. I mean, this team's in a great spot. Obviously, the conference schedule isn't as strong as you would hope, but I mean, what can they do? They got to play the games on their schedule. It was a great week for Memphis, and they have a lot to look forward to going forward, and I just hopefully this doesn't end up like last year, where Memphis is in a similar spot. They get up all the way to number 10 in the AP poll, and they just completely crumble in conference play. I will say about this team is obviously we're not in the building every day. We don't talk to these guys every day. We don't talk to these guys at all. They just seem like they're way more connected than the team last season.
Absolutely.
They play together. The camaraderie and I guess like the whole team aspect of it it's there. Where it felt like last year there was always something going on with, the Naquan Tomlin situation, bringing a player in mid-season can always be a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
And this team just seems a lot more together. Now, obviously, what do we know? But from the perspective of just a pure viewer, that's definitely what it feels like, and obviously that's exactly what you want.
And huge credit to this coaching staff. Penny really bet on himself. He brought in all these new guys, brought in all these new transfers, and he's like, "This is my team. This is how I want to run it." And so as a coach,
no, for sure. I mean, let's not act like all this has been smooth. I mean, he canned a bunch of assistants.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Very soon before the year, and brings in a clean slate. Most notably Nolan Smith.
Right.
They've done a great job. I think this has been. I mean, obviously it's early, but I mean, this is one of Penny's better coaching jobs.
Yeah, we have his best win of his time in Memphis here.
Yeah, I mean, at the time we'll see how that.
Right. Yeah, could look like a very average win if we're living in a dark time. All right, well, that's going to do us all for today. Thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.